Well, I had to get research. So I learned enough that because my information came from around the world, I've donated around the world. North Africa, Middle East, Iraq, Kuwait, Djibouti, Bahrain, Long Stool, Afghanistan, South Korea, Japan, you name it. I sent them where service members are deployed. And so I get feedback from these different locations, geographic different locations. So technically speaking, that's called anecdotal data. And because people from different parts of the planet are saying the same thing, that's called corroborated anecdotal data. That's powerful. Yep. So I could never find research because I'm not qualified to do pilot level research. I don't have a research PhD background, okay? So I couldn't get it. I'm failing. No, we don't have the bandwidth. I don't get it. I don't think it's there. And then I got a hold of a Dr. Maheen Adamson at VA Palo Alto, and she called, her admin person I debriefed and sent the letters to. They called me back in 20 minutes. Like I told them everything, and I showed them the letters. 20 minutes later, they called me, and I'm like, wow. And they said, hey, our director, who's a neuroscientist from Stanford Neuroscience, Stanford School of Medicine Neuroscience, would like to talk with you. And I said, okay, cool. What's your availability? And she says, how about tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.? And I said, okay, I got somebody's attention.
Yeah, what else do you need? Yeah.
So I talked with her.
They're hearing you.
I debriefed everything to her. She was a very patient lady. She listened to everything I had to say. I did not use profanity. And you appreciated that.
What a struggle.
It was, talk about a struggle, man. There's the ultimate one right for me. So she says, I understand everything you just said. And I covered the medical literature and Eastern medicine and the whole bit. Long story short, she has been collecting data. We're 50% through a pilot study right now where they're looking at the temple massager for traumatic brain injury, chronic tension headache relief, and as a sleep aid in a drug-free, non-invasive manner. Now that's called CAM therapy, complementary alternative medicine, CAM therapy. On the street, it's called holistic practices, right? That gets in the aromatherapy, the massage, and all that. So they're 50% through a pilot study. It's positive. I continue to get positive feedback and testimonies from combat veterans that are amazing.
Right.
And, so, you know, that's kind of the genesis of how I came up with the idea. Why? Because I was suffering my own problem. Like a good engineer, I should be solving problems.
Let me ask you a question, Joe. What do you tell young people out there when they are entrepreneurs and inventors themselves about not quitting, not giving up, pursuing that dream to accomplish the healing on behalf of your brothers who you lost in the military? How do you tell them to not quit dreaming and making that miracle happen and never quit 1 minute before the miracle happens? Why do you tell them you have to pursue this? Because in the middle of this research, they're starting to find out that you were, after all, correct in what you were doing and why you were doing it.
Yep. I'm going to answer that. I want to add to one thing, and I'm going to answer that. And I love sharing what I have learned to people for free, by the way. So hold that thought. What I just described to you is a physiological effect. So when I tell you that it's helping with jaw pain and headaches, I tell people you have to relax your mouth. So you have to let it hang open, right? And nobody wants to do that in public and whatever, that's fine. I literally will stretch my jaw open a little bit. I'll stretch this out. So when you're dealing with headaches and the TMD, that's physiological. That's musculature stimulation to get it to relax, to relieve the aches and pains, just like if you went and got a massage on your leg or your back or your foot, right? That's muscle stimulation, physiology. What I come to find from working with people at Stanford, I work with the Dr. Mark Abramson, who founded the Stanford School of Medicine Mindfulness-Based Stress Clinic. I work with Dr. Maheen Adamson. She's a neuroscientist from Stanford Neuroscience. And so what I found was I told them, I said, look, I have people telling me, veterans, combat veterans, telling me, My device stops them from thinking. Combat commander's letter said the product acted as a natural form of combat stress relief. Walter Reed tells me verbally, Joe, your product's acting as a drug-free distractor. Well, they're saying the same thing. And that's a psychological effect that I come to find out my device provides. That psychological effect is that when you're, just to use an analogy, because Dr. Abramson at Stanford explained this to me, he says, Joe, your product's triggering the relaxation response. And I said, well, what's that? And he says, well, look, man, there's a stress response, there's a relaxation response. When you have a stress response, you saw a car accident. You were in a car accident. You saw violence, or you were part of violence. You were in the military. You went to combat. Something bad happened. Abuse, sexual abuse, doesn't matter. Bad stuff.
Trauma.
Is bad stuff. That's called trauma.
Trauma. Right.
So people that have dealt with trauma, they have triggers, okay? And it doesn't matter what it is. There's different ones for different people. And so what happens is you start ruminating about negative thoughts and stuff you've been through. And what happens, your brain plays along. So if you're thinking about ruminating about flashbacks, whatever you want to call them, about negative stuff, your brain will produce adrenaline and cortisol, even though you're not in the situation. Just thinking about it, because something triggered you. A smell, a sound, an action, a product room, who knows what it matters. When you're triggered, you're dumping adrenaline and cortisol. That's bad for you if you don't need it. Long-term exposure to cortisol will eat the lining of heart valves. Combat veterans have a life decrease of 7 to 9 years because of overexposure to cortisol and adrenaline. Adrenaline leaves the body pretty quickly. Cortisol, I think, sticks around. I might have it reversed, but the thing is, if you're sitting around ruminating about bad stuff, you keep dumping this brain chemistry, you're decreasing your ability to experience joy in this world, and you're ruining your heart valves. It's hard on your body to have this constant exposure. So they told me, the doctors and people from Stanford said, Joe, it's triggering a relaxation response. That means just like if you're getting a massage, you're laying down at the table and they're working on your sore leg, foot, back, and you like it and it feels good, what comes out of your mouth at that moment? You just triggered autonomic nervous system stimulation to the brain such that a delay reaction happening out of your mouth comes, or oh yeah, that feels good. That's triggering dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, and maybe one other one. Dopamine, endorphin, serotonin. Yeah, that's the brain chemistry switch. Relaxation response. We're finding out my product helps with. And I collected data from Paradise, California, from the fire, because I donated a couple cases to the first responders. In fact, Steve, you went up there with me.
Yes, we did.
And I got a spreadsheet back from them from a handful of surveys. It's hard to get data, but I got enough. I got surveys back that the first responders were through the anonymous surveys were stating it helps them with stopping or decreasing the length of negative intrusive thoughts. So just like you're getting a massage and you're saying, are you thinking about anything else? No. You're thinking about, this feels good, man. I'm rolling with it, right? I'm not thinking about my problems or what happened to me or the future.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So that's the psychological trip that I'm hearing from people from Stanford. They explained it to me, and some doctors at Dominican College in San Rafael. They helped me understand that. So this device is actually potentially, and we're working on the proof, but anecdotally, I will tell you, this $60 device can change brain chemistry in a drug-free way through the stimulation of delivering that, it feels good. So there's a psychological trip. It's physiological, it's psychological. And so our pilot study with the VA is for tension headaches, which is the physiological, and for sleep aid. That's the stopping you from thinking, distracting you, keeping those negative thoughts away. So when you're laying in bed and you put a aromatherapy on there, lavender or whatever you want, and you're just kicked back, you put a pillow here, and it's lights out, and you're not thinking. Suddenly, you're predisposed to not think and go to sleep in that state, which is a beautiful place to be, instead of having all these thoughts about what happened today, my past. I got to go to work tomorrow and I don't want to. My car's broke down. All that shit. Stop. Just stop it all.
There's a global pandemic. Anything.
Pandemic.
Yeah, but you've been researching, Joe. This amount of research that you're downloading to Dr. Tim and Steve and I is amazing. You're like genius level.
Well,
what you've researched and studied.
Don't tell Steve that.
Right? and oh, by the way, you're the first combat engineer that ever cursed. That's what's stunning.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know who's a great combat engineer I found out was Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was a combat engineer in World War II.
Wow.
He never curses.
Yeah.
So,
well, hey, Joe, we see this. I see this clinically day in and day out. I've seen it for 25 years. People coming in, hey, doc, I got this clicking, popping in the right side. Typically, when we do our job examinations and x-rays and, evaluate the TMD, more often than not, you can palpate the masseter muscles, you can palpate the temporalis, and you can find these hot spots on people in, within about 10 seconds, and I tell patients all the time, I said, it sounds silly, but, get in there and work it out. You can get your thumbs. Now the temple massager, for crying out loud, you got this device where you can decrease that firing that's caused from stress. And like you said, it's compounding. And so I see this clinically day in and day out. So I think what you're doing is just awesome. And it's going to give us another
I agree.
instrument. It's going to give us another instrument as dentists to help folks with jaw joint discomfort. And
thank you for joining us in the Barracks. To learn more about our hosts, guests, and how to support V.E.T.S Mobile Dental Unit, visit www.inthebarracks.org.